Clemson just had the best offseason in the ACC, and it wasn't even close. Is this the year Dabo Swinney finally shuts everyone up? That's all coming up right now on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over at 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You know how we do it here on Locked on. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday, every single week. And don't forget to follow me in between episodes over on X at the Morgan T Show. We can talk about all things Clemson whenever and however you want. On today's show, we're going to talk about why Clemson dominated the offseason rankings, and ESPN recently came out and said that they are number one, crowned them number one in the ACC in their offseason moves. And I think it's kind of shocking considering all the doubt that was placed on Clemson from the outside media, how Dabo's big hire with Tom Allen has helped fix the defense and set them up for success for winning. And also one thing that still kind of concerns me about the 2025 roster. We'll get all into it today. Thank you so much again for being a part of the show every single day. Clemson just had the best offseason in the ACC, and I tend to agree with ESPN on this. They didn't just survive the chaos of what college football is right now in the NIL and the transfer portal era. They came out being one of the best, if not the best, in the ACC in the offseason, according to ESPN. And they really didn't have to revamp the entire roster or go out and get, 20 or 30 different players from the portal or pay a bunch of money for a big-time superstar. They just had to continue to do what they value and they believe in to stay consistent at what they've been doing. And it seems as if the national media is starting to catch up with what Dabo Swinney is doing and how he is building his team. And Dabo Swinney is also kind of catching up with the times as well. To give you a little bit of a setup here, ESPN's offseason rankings focused on three things that they were looking at. One was player retention. And, you have to be pretty confident about how Dabo Swinney does player retention and, his methodology behind that. So to me, Dabo would probably be one of those guys that gets an A+ from player retention almost every single year. Then the next thing they look at was coaching upgrades. I also think that Dabo did a great job. Now, he's come under a lot of scrutiny over the years of hiring from within or just promoting guys from positional coaches. And I know I agree with a lot of the fans that say Clemson is to a point. Dabo has built Clemson to a point where it's not about learning on the job anymore. And I would agree with that 1,000%. I feel like Clemson is no longer an area or a team that you can just learn on the job. They have made it to an elite level of college football. And when you are replacing head coaches or position coaches, maybe you can afford to do guys that are you bringing up through the program, maybe former players like Ben Boulware, CJ Spiller. But when it comes to coordinators, I think in today's college football, you cannot afford to be learning on the job like Dabo has allowed in the past. And so you have to go out and get the best of the best that are available out there. And Dabo did that this offseason and last offseason as well. And then finally, portal and recruiting additions. You'd probably be pretty confident with Dabo's ability to get into the recruiting and high school recruiting, but the transfer portal player market was non-existent for Clemson. Even though they would argue and say they did use it, they really didn't use it to the level that we're seeing now or that we're seeing with other teams. Clemson this year, though, this offseason, checked every single box and didn't have any drama about it, didn't have any feeling of desperation, and did not break away from their overall identity to do those things, to check all those boxes. Did they retain their top talent? Yeah, they did. Did they bring in a brand new coach that could upgrade them at the coordinator position? They definitely did. Did they go out and bring in a good recruiting class? Maybe 2025 wasn't as strong as they could have, but they went out and got into the transfer portal. without causing a lot of drama or upsetting on anybody on their current team. One of the things that everybody was worried about was culture fit. And the guys that they brought in seemed to be the perfect match for Clemson as far as culture fit. This might be Dabo Swinney's most strategic offseason that he's had probably in half a decade. Again, he really didn't overhaul the system. He didn't really go crazy in any aspect about it, but he made calculated surgical moves that put Clemson back into playoff contention, into ACC championship contention, and even what I believe, building one of the programs to be able to fight for potentially a national championship by the end of the season. Returning production is definitely there. Clemson leads the entire country in returning production. So that alone should give them a massive advantage in the ACC and with all of college football that, it kind of gotten to the point where college football is second to or leads the way in turnover. I know there are thousands of players in the transfer portal, and there's not even that many positions or teams available for players to go to. So what you're seeing is a lot of players leaving an area where they at least had a spot on a team to go into the transfer portal and never come out. Dabo Swinney makes sure that he continues to keep guys that he has committed to, that he brought up from high school ranks, and he's not going to let them go to the wayside. If you are willing to put on the orange and white and purple, Dabo respects that. And he's going to pay you or he's going to pay you what you've earned because of the commitment and sacrifice that you've made for the team. And honestly, I love that. I love that more than just paying the next mercenary out there. I'd rather you first get your paycheck out and you write your checkbook out for guys that are committed to your university, to your program, and to wearing your uniform. Whether the money was there or not, they showed commitment. But he didn't ignore the portal either. He knew that he needed to go in and get quality guys, not quantity like some of the other teams are going out and just revamping their team completely. But guys like Will Helt and Tristan Smith and Jeremiah Alexander are guys that want to prove themselves and want to come to Clemson and have a desire to do more than just what have you done for me, but hey, what can I do for you? How can I add to this team and improve it? Tristan Smith believes in what Clemson is doing and wants his opportunity to show what he can do at the next level. Will Helt believes in what he can bring to the table, but wants to be able to add his talent to a team that can compete and not just win one game. And Jeremiah Alexander is a guy who believes in himself, but needs to still prove it because he is an unproven 5-star recruit that still is waiting for his moment. And maybe this is his time, his second chance, if you will. And then finally, Tom Allen. Fans wanted to get rid of the old ways and to bring fire back to the defense, and they got it. I think that Clemson is using the portal exactly the way they should. They're avoiding and staying out of the big-time headlines and the drama. And they're entering in a new college football era where they're making splashes but calculated. They're not scrambling to patch holes. They quietly solidified their holes and built a core up of a team that can fight for a national championship around a guy like Cade Klubnik, who is going to lead the team, who is going to be the superstar that we expected, and who needs to make this his last final stand in college football. No rebuilding. The window is open now to get to the national championship, and Clemson has to take it, and they've done the right things in the offseason to take it. Hey, coming up next, we're going to talk about Tom Allen a little more and why he could possibly be the most important hire that Clemson and Dabo Swinney has ever made. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and even live during the game with player props, performance trends and same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play and smart and win big. I'm telling you, the players like Jalen Brunson are showing up in the biggest moments, and you can watch their trends and see, and the app even tells you and gives you ideas of what you can do to kind of put a parlay together and pick players when you think they're going to be hot and how they're going to be hot and what they're going to do. It's really awesome to see. And the best part about it is once you do everything, you can follow it live and see how everything's going. Everything updates in real time. And then if you win, you get paid out very, very quickly, so you can keep the fun going throughout all of the playoffs. New to FanDuel, you should go check it out. It's perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that $5 bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. The defense was soft last year. I hated it. You hated it. We don't want to see it anymore, and we're glad that Wes Goodwin is gone. I think he takes a lot of the blame for sure, and rightfully so. But it was a group effort, and we've talked about it before. The position coaches aren't immune to some of the struggles that Clemson had last season. But you start with the head man, and that was the defensive coordinator. Not really rotating players in the right way, not having them aligned properly, not sticking with the game plan and taking out the key players and allowing the key players to kind of get chunk yards against you, and losing all of the biggest moments and against the biggest games last season was terrible for Wes Goodwin. And Tom Allen's job is to change it and change it fast. He has the talent himself to make it happen right away, and he has the personnel on the field and in the roster to do so as well. Tom Allen was not with Penn State for very long, just one season, a national semifinalist with Penn State. And Clemson is a place where he wanted to be. He wanted to be near his family, and he believed in what Dabo Swinney was doing. And he also seems a lot like Dabo. You know, when you hear him behind the mic in the press conferences, it seems like he fits really well with what Dabo is trying to do as a football program. And changing the trajectory of the defense doesn't happen overnight, but you need a guy in there that believes in what he's doing and has a track record of success. And when you have that, you can quickly turn around a defense and get it back to a level of domination. Now, I'm truly a believer that there doesn't have to be this completely revamped defense. You have players that are at the talent level that you need in the right positions to make Clemson a top 5 national defense with what they're returning. Getting Clemson back into some more strategic blitz packages, holding them accountable to a higher level than what they've experienced the past couple of years, getting them with a more tough mentality going forward, I think will be the correct things that and the traits that you need from Clemson and Clemson's defense moving forward for 2025 and on. Now, you've started to see those things wither away under the previous regime, and the defense started to kind of slack off in 2024. The tackling wasn't there. The angles weren't there. The speed was starting to slow down for them, and the big gash plays were there. Out of position, getting bottled up. Those are kind of things, and then not being aggressive when you needed to be, and not having the right personnel on the field. So it was starting to erode. You know, maybe the first or second year under Wes Goodwin wasn't bad, but it was starting to get worse and worse as we kept seeing it. Now, Clemson, as we mentioned, has added to the program with Jeremiah Alexander and with Will Help. And you add those guys in with Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, Sammy Brown, and Wade Woodaz. Those are guys that can really build out an elite defensive front. I don't think anyone in the ACC or maybe even all of college football wants to face a front seven like that. To me, you know, I know Tom Allen's going to probably have a 4-2-5, so maybe not necessarily a front seven. We could say front six, if you will. But even still, I think Clemson has the talent to hold their own in a nickel package more often than not, if that's their base, which I do believe it will be. I don't think that people in the ACC are going to really have a good time facing Clemson because of the players that they have on the field. But I do believe that Tom Allen is going to get back to a more aggressive scheme and disguise the coverages a little bit better, get back to maybe some of those late calls right before the snap. And it'll, to me, kind of unleash some guys that maybe you didn't see a ton of in last season. I want to see Will Helton, how he fits in this package. I want to see what maybe TJ Parker can do in this package. I want to see how Khalil Barnes and Avion Terrell can flourish in this play call scheme under Tom Allen. I do think that one of the biggest areas that you could worry about is the secondary, and we've talked about it a lot, but you're going to have 2 new guys back there. But I still feel like that Tom Allen is going to be able to lead the team and demand a high level of communication and effort and energy and accountability among everybody. So even these younger guys who are now getting pushed into their starting role are going to be ready to take on that. Tom Allen is a great tactician, but he's also a great leader on the defense. And I think what we're seeing is he brings a lot of success and a lot of respect into the locker room. Now, could things go wrong and not work out? Yeah. I mean, we don't always know how things are going to shake out, and that's fine. But I do feel like when we see it on the field, you're going to get a whole show of how everything's going. And I think you're going to be excited. To me, Tom Allen is going to bring back the sharp claws or the teeth back to the defense. And to be honest with you, it could be the biggest hire since Brent Venables, since Chad Morris, one of those just superstar hires that you needed to take yourself to the next level. And you're always going to be compared to Brent Venables until you show that you can make your own legacy. But to me, Tom Allen is set up for success in that area as well. I don't think it's going to be a bad hire at all. He is working with a massive amount of defensive talent, more than he had at Indiana, as much as he had at Penn State, probably equal to the amount that he had at Penn State. And even though those guys maybe had more guys drafted or more guys in the national media, I do believe that under Tom Allen, he'll get Clemson back to that point where you're talking about all 11 guys on a national level being successful. So it also shows some really, we talked about the transfer portal and kind of how Dabo Swinney had adjusted and had one of the best off seasons in college football. But his willingness to hand over the defense to another guy and to a guy who's basically another head coach shows to me that Dabo is evolving his strategy and giving his defensive coordinators full control and authority. He's been under a lot of scrutiny about how much he's involved in the playbook, and I think he's more involved on the offense than he is on the defense. But Tom Allen and Garrett Riley are guys that you can trust to take over and follow their role and even have their own sense of how the game is going. Won't need Dabo to kind of interject. And as Dabo gets older, I think it's even better for him to kind of build himself a program where he's got guys that he doesn't have to handhold at all. Matt Luke was a great hire, and bringing in a guy who can be a head coach himself. Tom Allen's the same way. I think Garrett Riley, outside of just being young, can also have an opportunity to be a head coach. And you saw with Brent Venables and Chad Morris, those guys had enough confidence and leadership ability to become their own head coaches themselves. Both aren't really working out the best, but they had that there. It wasn't just a good hire to me. It wasn't just necessary. It is something that I think will build Clemson up for not just next year, but the next 5 years, and maybe even further than that, because Tom Allen has mentioned that this could be a place where he stays for the long haul, and that would be great. I don't know if he would ever be interested in going back to being a head coach again, but if he has a ton of success, he's going to get guys calling. He's going to get universities calling for him too. But I think that you're going to maybe have some stability again to the point of Clemson getting back to that 8-9 year stint with a coordinator, and have that amount of success could be Brent Venables 2.0 all over again. Maybe not the person, but at least kind of how everything played out. All right, we're going to finish up the show with the final segment talking about Clemson's biggest weakness and how we can trust that they can get past it. If Clemson has some big struggles this season and misses the ACC championship game and misses the playoffs this year, I don't think that it will be because of coaching, and it won't be because of quarterback or wide receivers or being able to get separation in routes or play calling, any of those things, or maybe even personnel rotations. I do think when you look at the roster, there are two weaknesses at critical areas of the field that are in the hands of players that we haven't seen a ton of yet. Clemson has lost RJ Mickens. They've lost Phil Maffa, two stars that you could depend on, two veterans that they really don't have a ton to replace with. And you're going to be eyeing more freshmen behind them. And I would even throw in Barrett Carter in the mix as well. Although I feel more comfortable with Sammy Brown than I do Kylan Griffin and Ricardo Jones. So that's why I'm going to tell you that the secondary for me in the safety position and the over the top is one area that I think is a weakness Clemson will have to figure out. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these guys rise to the occasion. But the reason why it's a weakness is because you have a little bit more raw talent than veteran presence. You're hoping that these guys will develop fast, but putting in these guys early could be a huge gamble that will elevate them to a level that we haven't seen, or it could be their undoing because they may not be able to rise to the occasion. They may be out of position. Secondary is one, as you're playing in a 4-2-5, as you're going against teams that are going to try to pass the ball against you heavily, going to be a big concern. And it's going to start from day one, week one, against LSU. LSU is going to try to stretch you and test you. Anybody who is more of talent than proven ability is going to be tested at week one. And Clemson's going to have to be ready and need to adjust if it's not working out. And even, like I said, loosely going into the linebacker position, but I didn't really circle linebackers. I circled secondary and safeties. But Sammy Brown, I don't think he's going to have a sophomore slump, but you never know. With him and Wade Woodaz and no Barrett Carter, how do they respond to each other being the only two out there? What if they have to go to a 4-3 and you have Jamal Anderson or D. Creighton or Jeremiah Alexander, and those guys are still very raw and trying to prove themselves? So there's some question marks there on how Clemson's going to handle that. And then the depth behind those guys. You lose one or two guys at the same time or over the season, you're not going to like the experience that you have behind them because they don't have a ton outside of maybe Tyler Venables. And you probably don't want him out there a ton because, to me, he's losing a little bit of his step. So there is a little bit of a gamble on some of the younger talent out there, but that's what we love about college football. That's what you have to do in the world of college football, is move on from your veterans and hopefully replace them with guys that were better or equal of talent level. But you're going to have a gap in experience from times in certain positions when you do college football, when you run college football, because you don't have long-term contracts, at least for now. And then with the running back group, Phil Maffa, I think that's the one that everybody is going to talk about every single day until the end of offseason, is whether or not you think Phil Maffa was a superstar or not. Replacing a 1,000-yard rusher is a tall task with guys that are very unproven. Jay Haynes, not very proven, and he's coming off of injury. Gideon Davidson, not proven at the college level, at least. Adam Randall, not proven at the running back level. And David Eziomume, still not proven with enough snaps and a sample size. And you got to have a running game. You got to have a running game that's going to keep you from being one-dimensional. You have to have threats in the backfield in traditional run plays. You can't just have guys going out wide and being another wide receiver and basically running 5 wide the whole time. So they have to have success because that helps you control the line of scrimmage. It helps you control the time of possession. And if you don't have that, you're going to get gassed. Your defense is going to get gassed. Your wide receivers are going to get gassed. And you're going to be more prone to 3 and outs and making mistakes in the passing game. So while we saw a lot of success in the spring from some of these guys, and we saw them from last season and even in high school, there's a lot of question marks around the running backs and secondary and even somewhat the linebackers as well. The good thing is that even the freshmen look ready, like Gideon Davidson looks very ready. And even the guys that are stepping in, they're not true freshmen. I mean, Ricardo Jones is not a true freshman. Kylan Griffin has experience. Sammy Brown is now second year in. Wade Woodaz, you can trust. Jeremiah Alexander, while he doesn't have a lot of snaps, I mean, he's been around college football forever. So you're going to have some veteran presence there. It's just, can they put it all together? Can they do so without getting exposed to some of the weaknesses of maybe why they aren't ready for the big time on Saturdays? Clemson and Dabo Swinney has always leaned in on player development and getting guys ready, and not just going into the portal for every single position need. And I think that's a good thing overall, long term. We've talked about that a ton. This year is going to be the year to figure out, okay, have they cleaned up their run defense, but at the sacrifice of their pass defense? Have they cleaned up their route running and wide receiver big plays at the sacrifice of having no running back threat? That could be the worst case scenario, and we'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out for Clemson. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of today. For your second listen, make sure to check out the portal show. You know, my friend Brian Smith over there has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan about the rapid changes of college football. Find the portal over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.